Looking at my computer, it says one. It's one my time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome after lunch. I hope you have some chocolate. Sugar is good to prevent from going. So is coffee. There's coffee back there. You guys don't drink coffee, right? Yeah, a lot of you don't. Coffee is a drug. Yeah, you gotta take something. You know, I teach an addiction class every semester where I'm at, and I start out the class with putting chocolates on every table where they sit with a note, "You cannot eat it." And they sit there and stare, and you see some of them like salivating. They really wanted it, but they can't eat it. They're not allowed to. And towards the end of the class, I give them permission, and they go like this. You know, it's good. It's quite a learning experience to understand what an addiction or what a trigger is. All right, so today we're going to talk about phases of recovery, and then we're going to do a module. And we're going to improvise a little bit. And part of the reason for that is because I want you to do that with your clients. They're going to remember certain things that you do in where you add certain props. A lot more than just talking to them. So you can improvise around your office, and I'm just improvising here as well. So we'll do some of that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the manuals that you have and what they are and how to download some of them online. From SAMHSA, I have the pages open. There's certain things they have upgraded, like the DVD. Who's got the one with the manual for family interventions? The one with a yellow sheet on the side? So you got that one. So if you raise that one up, there's a CD in there, or it was, and you got it out. Yeah, so that CD has a lot less information than what's online with SAMHSA in their store, and so don't ask me why. That's just whoever was the computer programmer only put less information in there and more online. But it's all free and it's online, so you can utilize that with your. So we'll go how to use those two manuals as well. All right, so phases of recovery. One of the things that I always share with people is that hope is a big thing. So a lot of times we've heard messages like, well, is there healing that could occur for someone who's used meth for many years or cocaine or anything? Do they ever return to normalcy? Do they ever get better? And if you don't believe that there's hope, then there is no point in treating an addict. And I mean that for you. If you don't believe that there is hope, that there is a full recovery that could occur for them, then probably you want to look at, you know, some of the stuff of the therapist issues that we looked at this morning, right? Or maybe kind of more research in that area. I believe there is hope. A lot of studies do show us that, let's say, in terms of brain function, we call this a brain disease, and Naida has talked a lot about that. How many of you watch C-SPAN? None of you. I'm a political junkie. So last night, actually, there was on C-SPAN, the NIH panel was in front of the Appropriations Committee, and they were talking about funding, which had to do with a lot of illnesses, including, you know, addiction, treatment, money, and so. But there's a lot of hope. You know, if you look at, 14 months of abstinence of someone who's been using meth, during their life, their brain functioning, the joy that they experience, the level of dopamines that they are released in their brain from just normal pleasures in life, just like for you and I, are the same as ours, that we have not done any drugs. And so that's what shows us that there is hope. You gotta have hope. Same thing with cocaine users. So if you look at just brain images and differences, between someone that has not used drugs, so we probably should not call that normal, but that's what it's called there. And maybe someone who's used, was laughing on that one. That was good. So a cocaine abuser, maybe 10 days sober, and if we look at him about 100 days sober, his brain activity is coming back. And so these brain scans and some of the studies, plus life stories of a lot of people that recover and are able to share openly about their story. Part of the thing that struggles is a struggle for us is that when my wife picks up the newspaper and she goes to the section of arrests, she'll joke around and say, "Oh, do you want to see if any of your clients got picked up this week by the police?" You know, or someone has an accident and they make the paper about, oh, drug and alcohol was involved, or methamphetamine was found on them, or pot was found on them. The bad stories always make it to the news and therefore to us. The stories of people who find recovery and change their life and transform it to the fullest of their potential never make it to us. And so sometimes we're tainted by that view, you know, as to is there hope in recovery or not. All right, so stages. This is the best model for me. It works for me. So I'm not trying to sell it to you. They don't pay me from the matrix model. They don't, you know, disclosures. But it's the best way that works for me. And so we do know that withdrawal stages, withdrawal stage, I guess I should say, is anywhere from you know, a couple of days to about 15 days, depending on the drug that people use. They may need that time to go through detox, and once they go through that detox period, typically in a residential facility, then you have what we call the honeymoon phase that comes up. About, you know, day 15 to about day 45, give or take. It's funny, I've actually tested this with my clients, just to see. Thousands of people was it tested on, but I still tested it with my clients, and pretty accurate for most of them. You know, so of what they go through, and they will go through a set of symptoms that people go through those stages, which will be clinical attention for you, and then what goals should they be working on during that time. And I actually shared, the other thing is, it came up yesterday, there's all these slides you're getting from all of us. Some of you that will move into addiction counseling more heavily will probably a couple of months or maybe a year from now send me an email, say, "Can I have your videos too, because I really like your slides." That's what I usually get. The reason I threw everything in there, these are slides that you're actually going to use with clients. When you do those group modules, you're going to pick from those slides and then add your own flavor to it and develop your PowerPoints. That's why I put all these slides out, so you can use all of them. All of them. Most of them I've developed, about 30% I've developed, 70% are public domain that come through the model. So you can use them as you wish. There's no copyright issues with any of them. So then you have it's called protracted abstinence in the language of researchers, but clients kept calling it the wall. They said, somehow, when I'm about 45 days sober, I feel like crawling the wall. Nothing is working for me. I feel guilty for what I did to my family. I don't have a job yet. There's just a lot of emotions. Somehow they haven't been able to really explain that why. But if you look at even the step work, it's a similar parallel. Someone who goes through, let's say, a program with AA or NA, they have this cliche called 1, 2, 3, drink. You know what that means? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, drink. Why do they say that?
After step 3, people want to relapse?
Well, yeah, but why? Yes, what's for?
I don't remember.
It's a good point. It's an excellent point. So if I'm not going to zoom through back, right, to the, but you do a fierce moral inventory of yourself, and then you have to share that with another human being of all the wrongs you did to other people. Right? And it's really painful, it's really hard, you kind of like sitting on fire, and so I'd rather just not do that, and so that's why they have that cliche of 1, 2, 3, drink. This is also a time in counseling when they really are beginning to think clear, and beginning to think about all the wrongs that they did to other people. It's true, so it could be some parallel with both systems, I think, that goes on. But that's what clients feel like, and this is the time when most of them relapse. Then, past the 120th day, is where they, 180 is another date, it's adjustment and resolution. Now why 120? 120 has been found as the least amount of number of days or time that somebody should be involved in treatment. And presumably, during that time, they have picked enough skills to hopefully be successful. The least amount of engagement in services that could help somebody be successful. And so that's why I think they probably plugged in a 120 up there. So that's, we're going to come back to those as we go, but these are the stages and that's what we're going to look at. A lot of times with clients, I will actually walk with them through those stages. Yes, I'm going to come right there. Let me finish the sentence because I struggle and then I forgot what I was going to say. Throughout my time in counseling with them, I bring this up. And we do an assessment where we're at. We look at the symptoms they're going through. You'll see my other slides that I'll have for each one, and I'll discuss that with them. And they kind of know a path of where they're going. My clients identify with my slides and my progress of that. It's almost like giving them a prognosis. So I find a couple of things with it. One, it educates them. And two, some of them tell me that it gives them hope. That if they're feeling like that, they know there's a light at the end of the tunnel because they're just going through a process that thousands of other people have gone through, and one day they'll be okay. Yeah?
I just wanted to clarify, when you say like 120 days is the least amount of time someone should be in treatment, you're talking about outpatient, one time a week, 1 hour?
Yes.
Okay.
At least that, yes, yes. It's presumed that during that time they've been to enough groups or enough sessions. It's not a proven thing, right? It really is a more suggested thing by people in the addiction field. That by that time, even if they drop out of services, they have a chance that they will succeed only because by that time they should have picked enough knowledge and skills through treatment to make it. That's what that really means. Great. All right, well, we'll come back to those. But withdrawals, low energy, they have a lot of difficulty sleeping. Some of them come in. When I worked in residential facility, they haven't eaten for days. And so we talked about the importance of assessment the other day. You can't put somebody into a matrix program, outpatient, if they're going through severe withdrawal symptoms. So one of the things that some programs actually say is, why don't you go to at least, 72 hours clean through a medical detox facility or something and then come back to us. Or why don't you go through a full-blown 21-day program or 14 or whatever. They're shortening those now too, How many of you have watched that movie, 28 Days? So we used to have at least 28 days of residential facility. That's where the title comes from as well. But somehow, that's shortened and shortened. Now we have even residential treatments just for 2 weeks. So they send them to some detox facility before they can actually put them in the program, so they can actually deal with some of the symptoms that go on during that time. It's a severe time, and a lot of people detox on their own, at some aunt's couch, at grandma, whatever. But it's a dangerous time. So if they're involved in services, you can't really tell them go detox at your aunt and come back. You would be liable for something like that. But you want to use the resources, and rightfully so. It can be a pretty dangerous time for some people. However, people with an addiction problem, they've gone through that process many, many times. So their hope is for the person in recovery to discontinue drugs. This is a time for family members to decide to really, are they going to be part of that recovery process? This is where counselors actually meet with family members to see where they're at. Are they just, I've seen so many family members, they drive to the facility, open that back door, throw them in the parking lot, wave at the secretary at the front to take them into the facility, and they are zooming out of that parking lot as fast as they can before they even get the family handbook. We have a family handbook, so information for families. Would you let? No, thank you. I'm done. You guys can have him. You know, so you never know, right? But this is a time to have a discussion with them and see where they're at, what they want to do, you know, and for them to really understand addiction. I think most families don't, and we discussed that the other day. So some groups are organized around family education. They are in that booklet that I gave you as well. Honeymoon phase. This is probably, well, worse than the wall stage. Honeymoon phase is, they feel great. We just ate and we feel great. You guys have been the most attentive from the beginning of this presentation till now, and from now to the end, it'll start going down. You know what? Your body will start wanting more chocolate, more food, more coffee. It'll be like afternoon, and your body will like respond to, okay, I just want a nap right now, you know, especially, you know, after such a nice lunch. These guys got fed for a few weeks, are doing better, are not using drugs. They gained some weight. That's very important for some of them. I run 3 facilities, 2 outpatient, 1 inpatient for women only. And when I say women only, we don't even have male counselors in that facility. Even I go once a week for a staff meeting. It's a totally gender-based treatment. It's really awesome. And we see that a lot with women who come into the facility that have just not eaten for many days or lost a lot of weight. And so they come, but physically they're feeling better. And they are full of enthusiasm. And they say, well, I got this. I got this. I mean, you are awesome counselor. I mean, we just had, what, 3 sessions together for the past couple of weeks, and I had a couple of groups, and I know the stages of recovery now, and with all due respect, I don't need you anymore either. You know, I'm on my own, you know. I don't need to go to treatment, I don't need to. This is where most of them drop out of services. Purely because they truly are feeling exceptionally good. Think about it. Someone who's been using day in and day out for a couple of years, maybe even living under the bridges, maybe going from couch to couch, maybe, you know, just not, you know, barely making it. And now they had like a couple of weeks of steady, you know, improvement health-wise, and gained sobriety, and gained strength, and gained structure, sleeping at night, you know, out during the day. They're going to some of the improved. Maybe they have a job too, and that helps, you know, in a lot of ways. This is the time when they just drop out. This is the time when they also relapse as well. And that's what I mean, it's worse than the wall stage. That if we're not careful in addressing that with them, you know, we could lose them as clients. They really feel like they're cured at this time. Not the nicest picture to be put up by a foreigner. I understand. I'm very sensitive to those things myself. But this was developed by a friend of mine who was a counselor with me at the same agency to explain to clients what feeling maybe, you know, at a honeymoon stage and overconfident is, not paying attention. You know, I'm thankful for those pilots the other day when I came in, where they took off again before the plane drifted off the runway as we were landing. It was weird. We came right as the storm was approaching, and so I have a lot of respect for them. But this is the way they maybe kind of look at it, or they get it. Using visuals with your clients is good. If you notice in the counselor's treatment manual, that every module, you have this one in there too. It just doesn't look like this, you just have the sheets. Every manual has visuals, and in part because that's what they're going to remember, that's how they're going to relate to things. So the goals during that time is really to identify those triggers, maybe to use the techniques that you tell them to stay. Part of your job is to remind them that they are at this stage. I remind my clients that, hey, you got to be careful. This is what you got to do. This is what you need to work through. And then for family members to be there and support recovery, and for them to recognize and discontinue some of the triggering interaction. Here's what I mean by that. I'll bring families in with the client, and I'll ask the client to turn to the family and say, now I want you to share with them some of the manipulative behaviors you did with them for the last week, not before, last week, where you really tried to manipulate them into kind of maybe, I don't know, giving you more freedoms, more money, where you were thinking about a relapse and you felt like you could use, you know, their anger or frustration as an excuse. Where did you try to maybe, you know, piss them off so that you could use that to your advantage, things like that. And they're pretty blunt, they're pretty honest. And they will sit and they will turn to mom and say, you remember when I did this? I really was thinking about using, and I thought, you know, that, remember, or they would turn to dad, remember when I did that? So, or when you do this, I don't like it, it really doesn't help me. Or when you questioned me, or when you drove by the AA meeting just to see if my car was there, I saw you. I don't like it that you did that. You know? Or when you came by the treatment center to look, is he in the group? All right, he's there. So now I can go shopping or home or whatever. I don't like it when you do that. I want you to lend me some trust. It angers me, and it makes me feel like you have no faith in me that I can make it. So having families really talk among themselves. I don't really, I speak very little in my sessions, like 20-30% of the time. I make them talk, and they have a lot to say to each other. It's just, if you facilitate just that, they will know how to help each other and, you know, discontinue some of those triggering things, and then helping each other do it. So the wall, this is the hardest stage in the sense of emotionally. Some people have suggested that there's a lot of spiritual growth that goes on with the client. We're talking about, you know, now they've been, what, about 45 days sober, you know, around 45 to 50 days sober. And that has brought a lot of clarity in their mind. They're not, you know, they're thinking more clear, and they're developing a sense of their spiritual self too. Maybe they're kind of, so they link it with a lot of their, you know, biopsychosocial, spiritual development during this time. And they feel like maybe that's why it's hard. So there's been suggestions as to why. But they don't understand it. But they do know that clients have reached somewhere that point of anhedonia, and I'll explain that through a video too. A point of I just don't care. Sometimes you'll hear, you know, clients, they get the efforts, you know, is one way that they put it, you know. And so when they get to that point, it's a risky point. It's a very high risk for relapse at that stage. But if we're there with them, if we, usually I just assure them, I just say, hey, I'm here for you. We're going to walk through this together. You know, just know one thing, I'll be here for you. And maybe you want to go to more meetings during this time. Maybe you want to come to the agency more. Like the way my agency is set up, it has a section as a drop-in center. We have like a ping pong table, a pool table, cards, and all kinds of stuff like that. And boy, man, they're good at cards, especially those guys who've been to prison. They'll beat you at every card game. But they do a lot of these activities. And so maybe they want to be more in a safe place during this time. So it's one way. One way that we try to prevent at this point is that they try to get more than one job, because they say by being too busy, I won't have time to think about all this stuff that I'm thinking right now. All the pain that, you know, I cause to myself or other people. And it's almost like a grief period, it really is. And well, I discourage them from doing that. Because what that will do is, yes, it'll bring them more money and maybe keep them occupied, but it'll also minimize their engagement in treatment services and recovery services. We do know that the longer they stay engaged in services, the higher their chances for success. We also do know that once we engage families, we see two improved outcomes. One, they show up at sessions because the families will make sure they're coming there. And two, what's most important one, is that they will actually stay longer in treatment when their family is involved, which then links with the first outcome of the longer you stay, the higher chances to succeed, or get in recovery and stay in recovery. So it's really important to kind of pay attention to them during this phase. So here it is. And no, it isn't. That was a trick, just to see if you guys could hear that. Not really. It's an honest program. That was a lie. All right. Okay, give me one more second. All right.
I'm grateful to be sober, but sometimes I can't help but think I've fucked up my life beyond repair. My family, you know, they had such high aspirations for me, and I know they never thought they'd have a 34-year-old drug addict that's not married and no kids, and, you know, really, I mean, in all ways, aside from staying sober, that's the only thing I'm successful at right now.
The only thing.
Part of what you're seeing is this phenomenon we call anhedonia, where everything feels bad.
I still feel like maybe God hasn't forgiven me.
If we took a PET scan of his brain, you would see dopamine levels not back to normal. Part of what they experience during these first months of recovery is this sense of nothing is right. Everything is kind of hopeless, nothing feels good, I can do all the right things and it still doesn't feel good. And I don't feel worthy and I feel sad, and you can see them get tearful. That's the anhedonia. That often will bring them back to relapse because they get this feeling, this is the way it's going to feel for the rest of my life. And if this is how it feels to be sober, I can't do this.
So there's certain goals that you have for recovery during this time for the person in recovery, and I think a lot of it is to really maintain that abstinence, and then look at relationships. In the matrix model, in the beginning, during early recovery skills, and you'll look through those at that first week or couple of weeks, we discourage them from going to outside treatment activities, such as AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, things like that. They just wanted to link with the facility. And it's around this stage that really we want them to start developing those systems outside the facility. I don't know why, but outside the treatment center. But this was the rationale that they used in the model. And I understand why. I think it's trying to really avoid relapse. A lot of times, new clients will be put into a cohort, and we're, let's say, working through this intensive outpatient model, and then after they will get together at Joe's house, or at Melinda's place or something, and you never know what goes on. And so, and they could jeopardize each other's recovery by being such a new group and trying to go someplace. Or they could go to a AA or NA meeting and dominate the meeting. And then after the meeting, you never know what happens, or they could have arguments with people at meetings. So they try to discourage that and just keep them in the treatment world for a little while. There's goals for family members. We talked yesterday how divorce among people that struggle with substances spikes when the person gets in recovery, not when they're using. And so this is a very critical time, really, of having a conversation with family members, whether, you know, they have to decide whether to recommit to this new relationship with that person. You're not the one I married. You're not the one that, you know, you'd assume they want the sober person, but you don't know. Maybe the sober person is totally different from what they assumed the sober person, or the sober person sometimes may not want the commitment in the family. And so you want to look at, you know, some of these, address some of these things, and maybe, you know, make families have a conversation at least about it before they split. You know, we're all family therapists, and I do recognize that some couples are not meant to be together, but some couples just split because they don't understand. They don't have the information. They don't know how. They don't know how to address the challenge they feel. But they also got to, you know, work on maybe at this time practicing more and more of the healthy communication. Like what I mean by healthy communication skills has to do a lot with actions. Think about like when a person is at this stage in recovery, maybe on fire about the activities that they do. Think about they're going to all these treatment sessions, group sessions that they do. They're coming to see you, and they're going to all these outside meetings. During this whole time, the family is wondering, when is this going to end? Aren't they? Or, where am I in this picture? We haven't been on a date. I mean, you keep going on a date with Arnold every day. But we haven't been on one together. I mean, Arnold this at the meeting, Arnold that at the meeting, Arnold that at the coffee shop after the meeting. Where am I at? No, it's true. This is what happens. This is the reality. And so family members are sort of often left out. So where do they fit in this picture? You know, what are we culturing them as professionals as to how to improve their relationships, you know, and sustain, you know, some of the things that they have. So it's really important to have those conversations with them in sessions when you meet with them. And a lot of the stuff in the book is it's suggestive, you know, for you to take it beyond where it is there. But it's suggesting that we protect those relationships and talk about.
I don't know, just since then I've been thinking about all these, you know, all the shit I've done.
Yeah. It touched on what we talked about Thursday when we talked about the dangerous emotions and the
Right.
loneliness came up.
I wasn't prepared for that kind of trigger.
It has nothing to do with motivation or being a good person or being committed. It has to do with the fact that you change your brain, you produce these effects that produce this out of control behavior that you're not aware of. I mean, when somebody gets triggered, when you're 6 months sober and you bump into an old drug using friend, you can feel your heart rate go up, you can almost taste the drug in the back of your throat. It happens automatically. It's not a intelligence issue, it's a biological issue. That's where the conditioning occurs, and that's what the brain disease part of addiction is about.
You can't prevent running into triggers day in and day out. Things are going to happen. So when they are triggered, how are they going to deal with that? They change their thoughts.
Right, so during that phase, it's really important that we help them stay sober and maintain that sobriety in addition to other things. The readjustment phase, this is really a time that they look forward to. This is the time when they have a job, they probably have a car. That's a big deal. Or a bicycle, you know, and they're running around. That's a means of transportation. Although I learned something really cute the other day. I had one of my clients who came to me and said, look, Adriatik, because we go by first name, we don't do like doctor this at the office or something. Hey, Adriatik, can I ask you a favor, bro? I said, yeah. He said, can you stop giving them bikes out? Because we asked the community, give me a good bike. That's my ad usually at the local newspaper. Give me a good bike, a good working bike, so that we can give it to someone that they can get to work with, you know. So Bikes for Work program, we actually kind of call it. Anyway, so I said, but they're good bikes. Some of them are like some of those bikes are like $800, $900. You look at it and you go like, I think I want one of those for myself, you know. But I said, why, man? He said, it's become a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, the PO now tells me that I have transportation. And because I have transportation, now I have to go to all these stupid things at the Career Center, the Voc Lab, your place, the other treatment center, and I have to go do my community hours too, because he said, you can run around town now. And he said, I want to say I don't have transportation. So apparently it's become an issue, you know, among clients. So my bike is broken. I don't know what to say, so. Anyway, so during this time, they really feel good. You know, they're looking at, okay, my life is improving. This is the perfect time to start recruiting your first cohort of clients, at least one of them, to be a co-facilitator. The Matrix program really makes a big deal about you're the counselor, but have a co-facilitator in groups who's had a lived experience. And maybe now your first co-facilitator may even be someone who's in recovery and hasn't been to the Matrix program. If you have a client and you're working at an agency where you have clients who are willing to serve that role, you know, to where they come in as peer mentors and just share, this is how I did it. Not necessarily this is how you should do it, but this is how I did it during that time. This is how I went through the wall stage myself. This is how I dealt with this trigger or that issue, you know. They bring that lived experience, and it's a big deal, and it's been very successful at my agency. We implement it that way. We really do have different people who come on board as co-facilitators, and they take a lot of pride in it. These are the clients that are on fire for their recovery, and they're passionate, and they come in and make a big difference. And it makes a big difference for them. They're helping now somebody else through co-facilitating the group with one of our counselors, and they feel very worthy and validated, and it keeps them engaged too. So it's a really nice added piece that the group has, and this is a great time to choose someone at this stage to be your co-facilitator for groups you're starting out. So, you know, there's different goals. They still need to monitor their recovery.